Are you a follower?
10, 9, 8,
Okay, so we're gonna probably add.
Welcome to Gather Geeks, a podcast by BizBash, the place where people passionate about meetings and events come together. This episode is a Gather Geeks special sponsor edition. Here's your host, BizBash CEO David Adler.
Today on this special edition of Gather Geeks, we have Eric Murphy in the house. He recently sold his experiential agency to Condé Nast and currently has the title of SVP Entrepreneur in Residence for the company. His latest endeavor is developed with the support and the DNA of Condé Nast called Concierge.com. It's a combination high-touch and tech-enabled solution to literally customize guest experiences, making every attendee feel special in whatever way personalizes an experience. From his early days as an on-air DJ, even in high school at a major radio station, to a pioneer in the music business, to selling artists in all different ways as things evolved, to getting very involved in doing it himself in his own experiential agency. He has used his experience and insights to show us how the world has changed and why the guest experience is everything, and everything that he built is based on improving that experience, which improves the ROI of events in big ways. So welcome, Eric. So Eric, welcome to Gather Geeks.
Thank you.
I love your story. And I want you to explain what happened. How did you start out in the event world and from music, which is a common theme in what I'm hearing, and how did you get to have Condé Nast support what you did, and now it's going to be blown out of the water?
So I started my career in radio as a DJ, also a program director and a promotion director. So as a promotion director, you have to come up with ideas and concepts to help drive listenership and also help create new event opportunities for radio stations. So I did that initially.
Wait, go back. What radio station?
Well, Z100 in New York was one of them. I worked
Okay.
at Z100. And also I worked in Portland, Oregon at a different Z100. I worked in Allentown, Pennsylvania at B104. I worked in West Palm Beach, and I started out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is my hometown, and that was KISS FM. So I was a high school DJ on a commercial radio station.
So once again, we have a common theme that everybody, high school is kind of where things start
Totally.
in the event world.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you start one thing and you realize how events connect into everything.
Yeah, definitely.
And so what was high school like?
High school, well, I was kind of I don't want to say a recluse, but I was definitely a shy kid. So once I got on the radio, it was a great outlet for me because you're kind of forced to be more socially engaged. And at that time, it kind of raised my profile in my high school. So I made a lot of friends, and it was an interesting time. But
So you were a DJ in an outside radio station while going to high school.
Yeah.
And so you must have been like king of the whole thing.
It was cool. I mean, I definitely had a lot of people that didn't know who I was before that wanted to know me, which was cool, but also a little bit upsetting because why didn't they want to know me before?
Right.
But I did, I learned it gave me a lot of confidence. It gave me a lot of ability to speak in front of other people and have that ability to sell. And I think that's a key in any business.
Right. And so what did you learn from the radio world that has like been a through line?
Yeah, this is exactly where it all started, because radio was always about creating excitement around the radio station. The competition wasn't necessarily the music you played, but it's everything else that you did between the songs, everything else that you did outside of the radio station. So we would create all these events and do all these stunts to get attention. So the stunts part of it is what really started getting me thinking. And that was more of like what you would call a PR stunt today.
What was some of the wackier things you did?
So one of the biggest, definitely the wackiest thing I did was have a what we called a Great Pumpkin Head contest. We had people carve pumpkins for Halloween and then wear them on their heads. So they cut the bottom of the pumpkin out and they wore them on their heads on this huge bridge that's in Portland. And basically the person who stood there the longest with this pumpkin on their head won $1,000. It was only $1,000, which didn't think that many people would do it. We had about 25 people that did it, and it lasted for 3 days. So there were people standing on this bridge for 3 days with a pumpkin on their head.
I'm sure their parents were loving you.
It was a lot of college students, but we got front page paper one of the mornings. It was a huge stunt, and that's the kind of thing that we did just to garner attention in the market.
Okay, so once you started doing Pumpkinhead things, what was the next part of your career?
So after radio, I went to RCA Records. So my passion for music is really what got me into radio, and then I went to RCA because I wanted to be like that much closer to it and closer to the artist side of things. So started as a regional promotion and marketing manager in Detroit. In early 1995, and within 10 months I was promoted to a national director out of New York here, which is where I moved in 96. So starting in 96, I worked all the way through 2003 at RCA and ended up running all of promotion and marketing for the label.
And so were there any goosebump moments of people that you met that you really loved? Like, who would be?
I got to work with a lot of great artists. I would say my claim to fame is NSYNC. I was a really instrumental part of NSYNC. I remember being on a tour bus with them and going on a promo tour and going to radio stations and retail outlets. And, these guys were 17 years old and no one knew who they were. And no one thought there could be another boy band because Backstreet Boys at the time were so huge. So being a part of that and being a part of that success was amazing. You're going from that moment in a tour bus with no one knowing who they are to Madison Square Garden selling out and people just going crazy. So it's a really satisfying thing to see that you helped bring that kind of excitement and passion.
And what are the things that you were doing that sort of I'm trying to also keep the through line going.
Totally.
What did you learn?
So I don't want to get too deep into this, but the record business is a lot of kind of deals being made about who plays what record and what radio stations are playing it and how much they're playing it. And there's a lot of independent promoters out there that kind of are just there to sort of take money and try and get records played. We were spending so much money on things that didn't really affect the artist and the marketing of the artist. So I had a concept when I came to New York to create large scale events that we would then use across 100 radio stations at a time. Every station would have to run that promotion the same way with the copy that we provide, with the promos that we provide. We would have the artist cut liners to promote it on their radio stations. And so we would do this collectively across all of these stations.
You were scaling events.
And instead of giving each station like, oh, here's a little event you can do, or here's a little gift card you can use on the air to give away, or here's a little interview we're going to give you, we did one huge event. And basically monetize that across all those markets.
One huge event at the same time, or one huge event that was able to be formatted in every market at different times?
No, one at one time.
One time.
Exactly. So as an example, one of the first things we did was when I worked with Christina Aguilera, we did a What a Girl Wants weekend in Los Angeles. So this is when she was blowing up. We had about 65 stations that were running this promotion, and the opportunity was to go to LA to go shopping with Christina Aguilera with the What a Girl Wants theme. She did a private performance for just those contest winners. We did a VIP party the night before, so it was a really VIP sort of money can't buy experience. And that ran across those stations, and in every one of those markets, we saw sales go up about 30 to 50%. So at that time, my bosses were like, wow, this is like amazing. Let's keep doing more of this. So over the course of my career at RCA, we probably did 20 to 50 of these large scale events that we scaled across multiple stations. We started tying in retail, we started tying in press. So these became like iconic events that just really helped drive awareness for the artist and for their
What were some
music.
of the other examples?
So other examples, we did a big Dave Matthews Band event at the Olympics in Salt Lake City. We did, people got to go to the Olympics and also go to this special Dave Matthews Band performance. We also got, let's see, another example would be, I'm going blank here.
Well, that's okay.
Let me think of
that. Yeah,
I'll think of more.
Yeah, think of more. I mean, this is sort of interesting that you were sort of doing it right before. I mean, everybody now talks about events are the new luxury and things like that. You were kind of pioneering that. It looks
Totally. And really just using the power of a large scale event with something unique about it to drive, sales of a record.
But you were alone in the woods then doing this, right?
Nobody was doing it.
And so that sort of shows your visionary aspect of what you're doing in a sense. But when did you feel that moment? What was the moment that you felt, oh my God, holy shit, this is working?
It was the times that the sales would come in, because we'd see sales every week.
Yeah.
And in those markets where we did these promotions, the sales were considerably higher.
Right.
And in those days, we were selling a ton of records. So it's not like now where we weren't,
Right.
They're selling very few. Like NSYNC sold 2 million records in their first
You
week.
saw it in real time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That ROI question wasn't even a problem anymore.
Exactly. And I had to beg to get the money to do the first one. And as they got more successful, they were like, here's the checkbook, just do whatever you want to do, and we can, run these all day long. So
do you think the events for the artists are still as effective? I mean, concerts, they're making money on, records are not making as much.
Yeah.
But the idea of building an event foundation seems to have been more important than ever for some of these stars that are going off on their own, like
definitely.
Justin Timberlake.
I mean, now more than ever, people want experiences, as you know, and I think an artist that can put themselves in a real life situation with fans is huge.
So, okay, take us now. Your RCA is done.
So RCA is done. I take about 6 months off, and I start thinking, wow, this was really successful over the course of my time at RCA. I should just do this for other record labels. So I started Pop to Life, which is an experiential agency. At the time, experiential was still kind of like, what is it? And
Right.
people thought it was like, oh, we're going to hand out flyers on the corner.
Right. I always say that in experiential and events, that for a long time we were sitting at the children's table for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's true. It's
and
true.
no longer.
It's true. So I started Pop to Life and thought I could do this. I could duplicate what I was doing at RCA for other record labels and other companies. So I did a big mailing to all of the record labels, sent out these boxes. Everything in the box had to do with pop. So there was popcorn, there was Pop Rocks, there was
that's fun.
Poppables, which were like little candy bars that you used to be able to buy. With big balloons, and I launched the company that way. I did a big sponsorship of a radio music convention, so I was really kind of focusing on my own industry. That being said, the industry was in turmoil at that time, so I didn't really have the opportunity to do a lot for other labels. I ended up starting to get new clients outside of the industry, sort of outside. Like my first client was MTV. We did the VMAs. So we actually created a large-scale national promotion to send people to the VMAs, and for them, it drove tune-in to their show. So that was their biggest goal. And the killer thing back then was we were getting all of this airtime for free. So we were getting premium airtime outside of a commercial set that you would be listening to. Like, this is the DJs talking about it on the radio. We got that for free by giving these stations these really great money can't buy opportunities.
So you basically invented content marketing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say.
Take the credit. Al Gore invented the internet.
So it was really powerful. I will, those were the times too that it was. I just think there was a lot of changes in the industry at the time, and there was a lot of people were looking for what do we do next? How do we market next? What's the next big thing? And I think we were just kind of in the right place at the right time. So oddly enough, concierge.com, which we can talk about shortly, that idea started with the MTV VMAs because we were managing.
Okay, so let's go through the genesis. You obviously see some pain points.
Yes.
And that's what I find in our industry, that it's usually a reaction to a pain point.
Yes.
And it's a side business that you think, oh, well, this is not that big of a deal. We solved the problem.
Totally.
But it turns out to be the big kahuna.
Totally.
So explain what you saw as the problem and continue this through line.
Cool. So the problem was we were managing all of these guests, and it wasn't just a registration process like, hey, I'm going to be there, and yes, I'm checking off RSVP. It was all of the details around it that we needed to manage. And what I feel is unique about what we do is that we're worried about every little detail of the experience, not just like, hey, here's a ticket, show up and have a good time.
So give us an example of those details that are always on the top of your mind.
So just everything the unique thing about our platform is that we have the ability to target groups separately in the event. So whether you have, I'll give the iHeartRadio Music Festival as an example, which is what we work on, one of our biggest events. We have 4,000 people. There's 50 different experiences within those 4,000 people. And that experience can be different from what invitation they get to who that invitation comes from to what's on their itinerary. Do they get the VIP upgrade? Do they get this? It's just about making people feel important and like they're VIPs. And I always say, today VIP is more the expectation, not the exception. And it's not about necessarily getting like access to things that you know that other people paid more for. It's just about
feeling
the process of like, wow, I feel important. I feel like these guys really took care of me.
That is so funny you say that, because I had we did an event last year, and David Beam, who is a event designer here in New York, talks about how he started his career as a Mary Kay person. And he says that Mary Kay, they preach that when you walk into someone's house, that every person has a sign on their head that says, I am important.
Yeah.
And how do you overcome that?
Totally.
And it's kind of like you're totally making this into a programmatic thing.
Yeah, and obviously there's a lot of registration software out there. There's a lot of other event software, but what our specialty is being not only having the platform for it, but also having a team of event and hospitality pros that know exactly how to run all the software and help you create that VIP experience.
So concierge.com is concierge with real people too?
Yes.
So
yes.
It's not necessarily just you buy the hardware.
Yeah, it's actually more the opposite. People buy the full service more than they buy the software on its own. So there's probably 10% of our clients use the software on their own, and the other 90% is us basically using the software for them and also managing that experience for the guest experience. The one thing that I also like to say is, think about eating at a restaurant. You would never have the chef go and wait on the tables because the chef is crazed in the back. He's got a million things going on. There's fire. They're running around trying to get things prepared. If they were to be waiting on those guests, it would be a miserable experience. So I always say, like, if you're an event planner, let someone else handle the guest experience while you produce the event.
Like, you don't want to be the customer service person for your company.
Exactly.
I would be the worst.
Look, event planners are nuts. It's the truth. I know it. Everyone knows it. They're brilliant people, but they're crazy because they're so particular and they're running around trying to get things done. So leave the guest experience to someone else and prioritize.
So go through the iHeartRadio sort of use case. I mean, how did you break that down? What does that look like every year? And explain to everybody what this is and how the impact of the personalization really has helped the event.
Cool. So the iHeartRadio Music Festival was one of the first large-scale events that iHeartRadio did when they switched over from Clear Channel. And their strategy was that they wanted to become a much bigger event and experience and obviously digital company. So this event, they created in Vegas. They have about 4,000 people, like I said, that we manage. And it's actually, ironically, goes back to the model that I did back in the day, which is they do this big national radio contest, and they have about 1,000 contest winners that are flown in from all these different markets across the country. So you have contest winners. You have also iHeartRadio's biggest partners and sponsors. So C-suite executives that are going that spend money with iHeart. You have local salespeople that are selling packages and markets to send people to the festival. So you have local market winners. There's just all these different types of people, including talent and record labels and all these different people going. So our job is to manage the experience for all these different types of guests. So you can't really do that with just a standard event management platform. You have to have something where you can actually divvy those up into different groups and treat them, independently.
But scalable? But scalable.
So scalable, yeah. Yeah, we can, you could have 2 groups or you could have 600 groups. So it doesn't matter.
Dig a little into what are the different types of things that would happen for a different group? Or is it more the attitude in the marketing, or is it's very specific?
It's communication, number one. So sometimes, Bob Pittman, the CEO, wants to
he's a friend of mine.
Oh, really?
And what I learned from Bob Pittman, he was the guy that created MTV.
Yes.
And has this number one through line of his entire career that it's not, the brand is an attitude.
Totally.
And that you have to constantly be that attitude, that personality. It's a human, living, breathing thing.
100%.
MTV was nothing if it didn't have all the attributes behind it.
Listen, he has brought an incredible persona to iHeart.
He's a genius.
Yeah, he definitely is. And super smart guy.
Super smart guy, and he's great.
And by the way, what we do for them is really starts with him. This is the experience that he says we have to create for these people. It's not just like,
he's hands-on.
Yeah, it's not like, hey, here's a couple tickets. We hope we'll see you there. This is like, send the person the right invitation, make it personalized. If he wants to send a specific invite to his 10 most important executives coming, we can send a completely different communication to those people while still keeping them in the oversight of the whole group.
This is a lesson for that CEOs and people that are really the managers have to be part of this system.
Totally.
That anyone that's not doing that is making a huge mistake. It's
starts
like
with them.
not being a good host.
Yeah.
Which I think is the biggest issue among a lot of CEOs. They don't know how to deal with people at events, and that people like Bob Pittman and people from Salesforce, these guys, they're brilliant hosts.
Yep.
And that's the key to their career in many
100%.
cases. And Condé Nast also has that theory too.
Definitely.
So go back into the experience. I'm sorry, I got so excited about Bob.
No, it's okay. So the premise is really just being able to personalize and customize an experience for each type of guest. So whether you're a contest winner coming from Fargo or you're one of Bob Pittman's most important advertising partners, you both feel just as important. You may not be getting the same exact experience literally, like as far as what you're able to do or access you have, but you're both getting a very personalized experience that feels like you're important, and that's really the secret sauce.
And does how do you start off with the designing of this on the, let's say it's not necessarily on the technical side, but are you creating personas for each person or each type?
Yeah,
what is the sort of the thinking and how you actually design each one of these?
It's really
prototypes?
just, for instance, for contest winners, let's say there's 1,000 people in the contest winner group. Those people might get an invite from Elvis Duran versus like just getting a general invite from iHeartMedia. So it feels more like, oh, Elvis Duran's actually the one that's, inviting me to this event. It feels more personalized. The communication that we give people throughout the experience, whether it's the first invitation they get or whether they're on site getting, hey, hope you're excited for the show tonight, we're engaging them constantly through the event. So they feel like there's somebody there that's kind of like, as you said, like a host of the event.
So are you, where is the onus on the design of this? Do you guys come and actually ask the questions to make the proper personas or whatever you're doing?
We do.
So the client doesn't have to start thinking from scratch.
Yeah, and I would say that most clients do know what they want and what the personas are. We met yesterday with Norwegian to do a couple of their ship launches, and they were just enamored because they have so many different splinters of people that come to this thing. And again, they're like, oh, we have all these people that press are inviting, and they're getting something completely different. There's a different objective for press. We have contest winners coming. There's a different objective for those people. We have executives coming. We want to make sure they get communicated to in this way. So they, for the most part, most of them know what the differentiators are. They've just never had the opportunity to actually do it that way.
How about for paid events? Are these non-paid events or paid events or both?
So we've dealt mostly with non-paid events, branded events, but we are just finishing up an integration with Shopify to be able to create not only a ticket sale opportunity, but the ability to sell packages, to sell upgrades, to sell merchandise. So each of these brands can now have a store that is integrated with our platform, and now can process payments for anything from a ticket to a piece of merch.
So at what point do you clients coming up with so many different groups that you say, oh, whoa? I mean, or it is not, really doesn't matter?
No. It's really the point of it. There's sometimes we do groups with 3 people in it. But those 3 people, there's a very specific reason you want to communicate with them differently, or maybe they're getting something different on their itinerary than the rest of the event. So it's really endless and limitless.
How about the B2B, B2C thing? Is it the same thing?
Yeah. I mean, we do mostly our clients, I guess, are a lot B2B, but we deal with their customers.
They're B2C.
Yeah. They're B2C.
But it seems like if, like a Dreamforce, if you went after them, it's B2B, but it really is.
Totally.
It's all morphing together.
Exactly.
So everybody's expectations to be treated as a VIP are not changing.
Exactly.
That's it. So how you were tell us the story now. How you moved from your company that you did work on to individual clients to getting Condé Nast to say, okay, I want to back this thing. This is cool.
So we had an investment in 2013 from Irving Azoff, which he is one of the biggest music moguls in the industry. He had a partnership with Madison Square Garden, and they started Madison Square Garden Entertainment, and they purchased about 5 different companies, and ours was one. We didn't get purchased, but they invested in 5 different companies.
Right.
So it was a great experience because of who Irving is and the opportunities that opened up at that time. But a few years later, Condé Nast actually called us out of the blue. One of their mergers and acquisition companies called us and just said, "Hey, Condé Nast is known for events. It's in their DNA. They do some of the biggest and best events out there, but they don't have any internal capabilities. They don't have a go-to agency. So they're interested in a strategic partnership." So I was like, "Great, this is awesome." As I learned more about it, they said, "Actually, we're really interested in purchasing an experiential agency." So, we interviewed with, every person in that company, every executive in that company over and over. And I think what made us stand out was the fact that we had the event and kind of production experience of Pop to Life. And we had the technology part with what was then called Ribbit. We actually renamed it concierge.com once we got to Condé Nast. But they liked that we had both of those elements. And the other thing they liked, which kind of bodes to why we're successful with this product, is that we have very long-term clients. We don't cycle through clients one after the other. We have clients that have been with us for 10 years plus. iHeart is one of them. HGTV is another one. We have these guys that don't go to any other agencies, and that's because we treat them differently than other agencies. And it kind of all goes together.
So when you say agency, Pop to Life, are you focusing on the entire experience, or are you focusing on the guest experience so that other agencies could hire you?
So Pop to Life is an experiential production company.
Okay.
Yeah. We come up with a concept and we execute the concept.
Right.
Or sometimes the brand comes up with the concept and we execute the concept. Right. Concierge is completely separate at this point.
Okay.
It used to be that some of the Pop to Life team were the kind of event concierge team.
I see. Okay, so it's separate completely.
It was, and now once we got under Condé Nast, we actually merged them together.
Okay.
So now that's where concierge.com came from, was the Pop to Life.
So all of it is concierge.com?
No.
So you now have two different...
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, so concierge.com is a separate company. Pop to Life still exists as a
So you're operating under two separate tracks at Condé Nast.
Correct. Yeah.
And is Condé Nast using you for internal brands?
Oh, yeah.
Mostly? So that...
Yeah.
Okay.
Not even mostly. It's we still have all of our exterior clients. We still get new clients from outside the building, but we are doing the majority of the Condé Nast events as well. So... Wow. We're doing. We just did our first Teen Vogue Summit last year, which was incredibly successful.
Yeah, we've been covering that. I mean, it's incredible.
We had Hillary Rodham Clinton speaking there. We're doing another one coming up. We're doing 2 this year, so we're producing that, and we're also doing all the ticketing and the VIP kind of thing through Concierge. We are doing the Vogue Forces of Fashion event, which was a first-year event last year. They're doing it again this year. Again, we sell the tickets through our Shopify integration, and then we obviously manage all those guests going to the event as well. So it's the high touch kind of side of what we brought to the table that Condé Nast was excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I have another friend who tells me that we can't. We're not really all about the total experience. Isn't the event, but we're the high touch part of that experience.
Totally.
And if you screw up the high touch part, nothing else matters, because everybody has this impression that you guys don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's really, really important. So they're also, I mean, all media seems to be doubling down on events and touching people and connecting with people. And I believe that convening power is what it's all about now.
Yeah.
Especially when you see the Dreamforces and they're going crazy, and you see that the Amazon events, Amazon AWS events, things like that. The people from Las Vegas are telling me that they could be 200, 300,000 people going to that. And they started as 10,000 people just a few years ago.
Yeah.
So we're seeing convening power and the idea of knowing how to deal with each part of these communities.
Totally.
That you guys are actually helping people be the mayors of their worlds.
Yep.
And dealing with all the different constituencies.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you probably have another political area here too that you probably get into in terms of helping in that area. So what does it look like now for the experience between you and your customers? Are you sort of thinking that like a VIP experience as well?
Exactly.
As onboarding, like when I get my Apple Watch, I open it in that beautiful thing. Are you doing stuff that you're talking the talk in a sense?
Yes,
So
and again, that's kind of why Condé Nast we were appealing to them, because the way we treat our clients, we're extremely hands-on in a very personal way with them.
What does that mean? Everybody says that. What does that mean?
It means that we listen, number one, and it's easy to say that, but it's hard to actually do it.
Yeah.
We're very good listeners. We go the extra mile without nickel and diming people. We don't sit there and if we're that's going to cost another $1,000. Oh, that's going to we just okay, no problem, we'll get it done. In the beginning of the company, my philosophy was get the business, treat them like gold, get the business, and once you're in there, it's, then you can develop it and you're gold. But I think the important thing for us is just the way that we treat them, just on a personal level, just the way we communicate with them. It's very different. And our clients say that, like, they're like, you guys aren't like any other agency we've had before.
So, Eric, give some advice to the rest of the world here in terms of what, through your vast experience, what you've seen that people should be really taking note of and improving. Is it the fact that they're not doing the guest experience the way it should be done? What is your through line on this?
I think it's absolutely that. I think that the people are so focused on producing the event, and they produce amazing events, but they don't ever think about that guest experience other than, oh, let's send them an invite and they'll show up. Like, there's a lot of communication and things that need to happen between the time someone is invited or registers for an event and the time they leave that event. And it's not just a, bookend. There's a lot in between that people don't pay attention to. And I think for us, it's communication. As simple as it sounds, you're just managing expectations the entire way through and giving people a heads up as to what's happening. Let's say an event gets moved an hour or something. You have to communicate that to those people in a timely manner and communicate it in a way where they know what to expect next and they're not surprised by something.
Are you communicating in real time too?
Yes.
And so if there's an activation that's going on, you can point people in the right place if it's appropriate.
Exactly.
And show
We just did an event for Capital One. It was an Orange Bowl event, and they had spent all this money to bring these like 400 of their most VIP clients in for this awesome event. All of them were in this bar watching this game, and there was no one at their party, and they're thinking, like, what is going on? They realized that all these people were watching a game, and so we sent a text message to everyone that was in that event at that bar and said, by the way, we have the game on here. And you literally saw the entire group of people migrate from that bar down to where the Capital One party was. So it sounds little, but number one, you're spending your money to produce that party, so we obviously want attendees. And number two, like, it's a great experience for them, and they know that, like, they were looking out for their guests who wanted to watch that game.
Right. I mean, I always believe that that all this decor and all this cool stuff, all it really is are cues to get people to talk to each other.
Yeah.
So that they have an experience that's not like just watching TV at home.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, how do you sort of make it interesting and make it less hard to do? I mean, it seems like removing the friction is really what you guys are about. I mean, I always say that the whole purpose of technology is to take what was complex and make it trivial.
Yep.
And I believe that that's what you're trying to do and doing.
Totally.
And the micro niches of this.
And everybody can relate to the Disney experience. When you go to Disney World, people are like, oh, these guys have it down. They're so amazing. Everything's to a T. Like, that's the experience you should be creating at every event that you do. Yeah. And it's not terribly difficult, but you have to think about it and you have to remember to do that.
Right. So what do you see what is in your crystal ball? Because, this is the most dynamic time in our industry.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most dynamic times in the world. The fact that we're having this podcast on this little tiny studio, this little tiny thing that we're using that used to be big, and the whole world has changed so much. How do you guys keep up? I assume now that you're backed by Condé Nast, it may give you a little bit of breathing room to do that.
Definitely. I mean, one of the advantages for me as an entrepreneur is it's very stressful to have your own company. Even if it's successful, it's stressful because you're constantly trying to grow and you have livelihoods in your hands. Yeah. It's very stressful as an individual to deal with that. Yeah. So now I get to be inside a larger entity that backs me financially, but still allows me to do what I do. So I think that's really beneficial for us. I have a lot of pressure relieved on the kind of running the business side, and I can now focus that energy on growing the business and coming up with new ideas and constantly evolving.
So what do you? I mean, I was telling you earlier that I was with friends in Las Vegas, and they were saying that this with the whole new Magic Leap and all these things that are being launched, it's going to change the registration process from a security point of view to facial recognition, and that's going to be a game changer, and we're going to see it in a fairly short order.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think AR is probably the biggest change coming. Not coming, it's here, but
it's being realized.
Yeah, it's not. It hasn't really been done yet.
No.
It's the Pokemon Go is probably the best example of like what the possibilities are, but it really hasn't been done yet. I think that's for two reasons. One, it's expensive right now to do it, so brands are iffy on if they can afford it, and the other one is that because it hasn't been done, people are afraid to do it. And I think that's another differentiator for us, is like not being afraid to take the next step, not being afraid to roll out a new feature that is, a far and away above where you are.
So you want to give us some sort of insights into what you're thinking?
So a couple things. Number one, we're creating a seating tool that we're hoping is going to be a VR seating tool where you can basically go into you'll have a room that you can put the goggles on and basically go in and seat people by hand using VR versus like looking on a spreadsheet or looking on a computer screen. So that's one thing that we've been working on, which is it's extremely difficult because you have to obviously have the rooms in the system that you're going to be having events in. We also are building a digital concierge where instead of us having to manually message people throughout an event, it will be geo-targeted or timed to where you can send out different messages at different times to get feedback in real time versus like sending in a survey at the end of an event. I hate surveys. I think they're such a bad idea. And everybody wants them because they want the feedback. So we're like, why don't you do it while people are in the moment? Like, hey, did you enjoy the show tonight? Who's your favorite artist? Just kind of a conversational way to do it versus like, here's a 20-minute survey we'd like you to take at the end of the event. So just making that more conversational and more intuitive.
More human.
More human.
Yeah.
And then we also have a mobile partner that we're working on doing a lot of really cool kind of surprise and delight moments where you could basically, let's say you're one of the VIPs at an event and you have no idea this is happening, but you get a text message that says, hey, we just arranged a secret meet and greet with Christina Aguilera or with, Adam Levine, whoever. Yeah, you can actually, we have this new scratch off where you can scratch off the screen on your phone and it's like a scratch off ticket. Wow. So then it reveals like who the meet and greet's with, where to go. Wow. Just those moments that people are like, wow, that was really cool.
Wow, this is really exciting. You really are sort of doing it. And this feels like you're able to have, to go into this R&D side.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
You can really sort of, instead of having to worry about every payroll every time with lots of people, you can actually take the time to do it. And Condé Nast is, when I heard that you guys were part of Condé Nast, there's a good image that it gives off.
Totally.
And I think it is all about the Bob Pittman attitude thing.
Yeah.
That that when you see something like that, it's kind of cool. They kind of know what they're doing.
And
they're high touch.
In our building, it's Anna Wintour. Like she's one of the most brilliant minds in history when it comes to fashion and beauty and pop culture and just we have such amazing people and such talent in that building that it's for us, it's sky's the limit.
Well, I love the fact that my whole job is to help elevate the event industry, and the fact that the Condé Nast of the world are really doubling down on events.
Yes,
is very, very good news for our industry because we're at the right time. Because I believe that events are now the new town square.
Yeah,
and it really is. There's so much about events that's going to change. That's changing the world. Like with what happened a couple of weeks ago with the march.
Yes,
that was an event. Events move people.
Totally.
And when you deal with those kind of things, and they're going to be looking for more ways to make it better and easier. That was a big, I bet they have no tools whatsoever that they're using. And
imagine how that was created with nothing, basically, other than word of mouth for the most part.
Yeah, and those kids are the future of what we're going to be. And
Absolutely.
So it gave me a lot of pause to think that this industry is in good shape.
Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts in terms of your sense of philosophy of what the world's going to be like with your product and what's driving you? And then we'll sort of ask how to get in touch with you.
Oh, perfect. Again, it's repetitive, but it just comes down to being more human with people, being more connected with people. As disconnected as people are with digital devices, you've got to connect with them as much as possible when you're doing an event. It's not just about producing an amazing event and people show up and the show's over. There's all these touch points from the time they're engaged all the way through the event that need to be nurtured, and the little things are what make people remember those things. They're not going to be like, wow, that plasma screen was the most unbelievable screen I've ever seen. They're going to be like, wow, I felt so awesome coming in here. It was so easy to get in. I was treated like gold when I walked through the door. Like, they're going to remember the way they were treated, not like the production of the event.
It all comes down to Maya Angelou, right?
Yeah.
How we make them feel.
Yeah.
So, Eric, how do we get in touch with you or your company?
Yeah, so concierge.com obviously is the website. Right. On that website is basically everything that we offer, from our software side to our event services side, which is our concierge team. And then, you can reach me at eric@concierge.com. I answer emails to everybody. That's another reason why I feel like I've been successful, is I've always communicated with people. When people reach out saying, hey, I just want to have an interview with you because I'm a student that wants to get into events, like, I do that stuff.
I do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, you have to.
And not to mention, within 15 minutes, they're like running a big company.
Totally.
Because this is one industry that does not scale.
Yeah.
You have to, people have to actually do the work when people come to your event.
Exactly.
And so
it's
great. So this is great. Thank you, Eric, for being on Gather Geeks, and look forward to continued conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Player FM, Google Play, and Pocket Cast. Be sure to leave us a rating and review. It helps others discover the Gather Geeks podcast. We'd also love to hear from you. You can leave feedback on Twitter @GatherGeeks, or leave us an email, gathergeeks@bizbash.com. We hope you'll join us again for the next episode of Gather Geeks. Until then, gather on. Event management software is supposed to save you time, but it rarely does. What you really need is event management software that comes with a team of event and hospitality pros. Concierge.com by Condé Nast offers ingenious registration and guest management software, along with the people you need to manage it all. Go to concierge.com to see how we can help you and how we make every guest feel like a VIP.